Chapter 3. Off to Kirin Island. Next day was sunny and warm. "We can go across to the island this morning," said Aunt Fanny. "We will take our own food, because I am sure Uncle Quentin will have forgotten we are coming." "Has he got a boat there?" asked George. He hasn't taken my boat, has he?" "No, dear," said her mother. "He's got another boat. I was afraid he would never be able to get it in and out of all those dangerous rocks around the island. But he got one of the fishermen to take him and had his own boat towed behind with all his stuff in." "Who built the tower?" asked Julian. "Oh, he designed the plans himself, and some man was sent down from the Ministry of Research to put the tower up for him," said Aunt Fanny. "It was all a bit of a secret, really. The people here were very curious about it, but they don't know any more than I do." "No local people helped in the building?" "But 1 or 2 more fishermen were hired to take the material to the island and to lend the man, and so on." "It's all very mysterious," said Julian. "Uncle Quentin leads quite an exciting life. Really? Doesn't he? I wouldn't mind being a scientist myself. I want to be something really worthwhile when I grow up. I'm not just going into an office. I'm going to be on my own." "I think I will be a doctor," said Dick. "I am off to get my boat," said George, feeling bored with his talk. She knew what she was going to do when she was grown up. Live on Kirin Island with Timmy. Aunt Fanny had prepared plenty of food to take across to the island. She was quite looking forward to the trip. She hadn't seen her husband for a few days and was anxious to know that he was all right. They all went down to the beach, Julian carrying the bag of food. George was already there with her boat. Alf, a friend of George's, was there too, ready to push the boat out for them. He grinned at the children. He knew them all well. In the past, he would look after Timmy for George when her father had said the dog must be given away. George had never forgotten Alf's kindness to Timmy and always went to see him every holiday. "Going off to the island?" said Alf. "That's a strange thing in the middle of it, isn't it?" "Kind of like a lighthouse. Take my hand and let me help you in." Anne took his hand and jumped into the boat. George was already there with Timmy. Soon they were all in. Julian and George took the oars. Alf gave them a shove, and off they went on the calm, clear water. Anne could see everyone's stone on the bottom. Julian and George rowed strongly. They sent the boat along swiftly. George began to sing a rowing song, and they all joined in. It was lovely to be on the sea in a boat again. "Oh, holidays, go slowly. Don't rush away too fast," George said her mother nervously, as they came near to Kirin Island. "You will be careful of those awful rocks, won't you? The water's so clear today that I can see them all, and some of them are only just below the water." "Oh, you know I have rowed hundreds of times to Kirin Island," laughed George. "I couldn't go on a rock. I know them all. Really, I do. I could almost row blindfold to the island now." There was only one place to land on the island in safety. This was a little cove, a natural little harbor running up to a stretch of sand. It was sheltered by high rocks all around. George and Julian worked their way to the east side of the island, rounded a low wall of very sharp rocks, and there lay the cove, a smooth inlet of water running into the shore. Annie had been looking to the island as the others rowed. There was the old ruined Kirin castle in the center, just the same as ever. Its tumble-down towers were full of jackdaws as usual. Its old walls were cribbed by ivy. "It's a lovely place," said Annie, with a sigh. Then she gazed at the strange tower that now rose from the center of the castle yard. It wasn't built of brick, but some smooth, shiny material, which was fitted together in sections. Evidently, the tower had been made in that way so that it could be brought to the island easily and set up there quickly. "Isn't it strange?" said Dick. "Look at the little glass room at the top, like a lookout room. I wonder what it's for." "Can anyone climb up inside the tower?" asked Dick, turning to Aunt Fanny. "Oh, yes, there's a narrow spiral staircase inside," said his aunt. "That's about all there is inside the tower itself. It's the little room at the top that's important. It's got some extraordinary wiring there, essential to your uncle's experiments. I don't think he does anything with the tower. It just has to be there, doing something on its own, which has a certain effect on the experiments he is making." Anne couldn't follow this. It sounded too complicated. "I would like to go up the tower," she said. "Perhaps your uncle will let you," said her aunt. "If he's in a good mood," said George. "Now, George, you're not to say things like that," said her mother. The boat ran into the little harbor and grounded softly. There was another boat there already, Uncle Quentin's. George leapt out with Julian and they pulled it up a little further, so that the others could get out without wetting their feet. Out they all got, and Timmy ran up the beach in delight. "Now, Timmy," said George, warningly, and Timmy turned a despairing eye on his mistress. Surely she wasn't going to stop him looking to see if there were any rabbits. Just looking. What harm was there in that? Ah, there was a rabbit. At another and another. They sat all about, looking at the little company coming up from the shore. They flicked their ears and twitched their noses, keeping quite still. "Oh, there's as tame as ever," said Annie in delight. "Aunt Fanny, aren't they lovely? Look at the baby one over there. He's washing his face." They stopped to look at the rabbits. They really were astonishingly tame. But then very few people came to Caron Island, and the rabbits multiplied in peace, running about where they liked, completely unafraid. "Oh, that one is," began Dick, but then the picture was spoiled. Timmy, unable to do anything but look, had suddenly lost his self-control and was bounding on the surprised rabbits. In an instant nothing could be seen but white bobtails flashing up and down as rabbit after rabbit rushed to its burrow. "Timmy," called George, crossly, and poor Timmy put his tail down, looking around at George miserably. "What?" he seemed to say. Not even a scamper after the rabbits. What a hard-hearted mistress. Where's Uncle Quentin? Asked Anne, as they walked out to the great broken archway that was the entrance to the old castle. Behind it were the stone steps that led towards the center. They were broken and irregular now. Aunt Fanny went across them carefully, afraid of stumbling, but the children who were wearing deck shoes ran over them quickly. They passed through an old ruined doorway into what looked like a great yard. Once there had been a stone-paved floor, but now most of it was covered by sand and by close-growing weeds or grass. The castle had 2 towers. One was almost a complete ruin. The other was in the better shape. Jackdaws circled around it and flew above the children's heads, crying chack, chack, chack. I suppose your dad lives in the little old room with the 2 slit-like windows, said Dick to George. That's the only place in the castle that would have given him any shelter. Everywhere else is in ruins except that one room. Do you remember we once spent a night there? Yes, said George. It was fun. I suppose that's where Dad lives. There's nowhere else, unless he's down in the dungeons. Oh, no one would live in the dungeons, surely, unless they absolutely had to, said Julian. They are so dark and cold. Where is your dad, George? I can't see him anywhere. Where should Dad be? Asked George. Where is this workshop? In that old room there? She pointed to the dark, stone-walled, stone-roofed room, which was really all that was left of the part in which people had long ago lived. It jutted out from what had once been the wall of the castle. Well, I don't exactly know, said her mother. I suppose he works over there. He's always met me down at the cove, and we have just sat on the sand and had a picnic and talked. He didn't seem to want me to poke around much. Let's call him, said Dick. So they shouted loudly, Uncle Quentin, Uncle Quentin, where are you? The jackdaws flew up in the fright, and a few gulls who had been sitting on a part of the ruined wall joined in the noise, crying, ew, 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 over and over again. Every rabbit disappeared in a trice. No Uncle Quentin appeared. They shouted again, Uncle Quentin, where are you? What a noise, said Aunt Fanny, covering her ears. I shouldn't think that Jonah could have heard that at home. Oh dear, where's your uncle? This is very annoying of him. I told him I would bring you across today. Oh well, he must be somewhere about, said Julian, cheerfully. I accept he is deep in a book or something. We will hunt for him. We will look in that little dark room, said Anne. So they all went through the stone doorway and found themselves in a little dark room, lit only by 2 slits of windows. At one end was a space or recess where a fireplace had once been, going back into the thick stone wall. He is not there, said Julian in surprise. And there's nothing here at all. No food, no clothes, no books, no supplies of any sort. This isn't his workroom, or even his storeroom. Then he must be down in dungeons, said Dick. Perhaps it's necessary to his work to be underground, and with water all around. Let's go and find the entrance. We know where it is. Not far from the old well in the middle of the yard. Yes, he must be down in the dungeons. Mustn't he? Aunt Fanny, said Anne. Are you coming down? Oh no, said her aunt. I can't bear those dungeons. I will sit out here in the sun, in this sheltered corner, and unpack the sandwiches. It's almost lunchtime. Oh God, said everyone. They went towards the dungeon entrance. They expected to see the big flat stone that covered the entrance standing upright, so that they could go down the steps underground. But the stone was lying flat. Julian was just about to pull on the iron ring to lift it up, when he noticed something strange. Look, he said. There are weeds growing around the edges of the stone. Nobody has lifted it for a long time. Uncle Quentin isn't down in the dungeons. Then where is he? Said Dick. Whatever can be. Chapter 4. Where is Uncle Quentin? The four of them, with Timmy noising around their legs, stood staring down at the big stone that hid the entrance to the dungeons. Julian was perfectly right. The stone couldn't have been lifted for months, because weeds had grown closely around the edges, sending their small roots into every crack. No one is down there, said Julian. We needn't even bother to pull up the stone and go down to see. If it had been lifted lately, those weeds would have been torn up as it was raised. And anyway, we know that no one can get out of the dungeon once the entrance stone is closing it, said Dick. It's too heavy. Uncle Quentin wouldn't be silly enough to shut himself in. He would leave it open. Of course he would, said Anne. Well, he is not there then. He must be somewhere else. But where? Said George. This is only a small island, and we know every corner of it. Oh, could he be in that cave we hid in once? The only cave on the island. Oh yes, he might be, said Julian. But I doubt it. I can't see Uncle Quentin dropping down through the hole in the cave's roof, and that's the only way of getting into it unless you are going to clamber and slide about the rocks on the shore for ages. I can't see him doing that either. They made their way beyond the castle to the other side of the island. Here there was a cave they would once lived in. It could be entered with difficulty on the seaward side, as Julian had said, by clambering over slippery rocks, or it could be entered by dropping down a rope through a hole in the roof to the floor some way below. They found the hole, half hidden in old heather. Julian felt about. The rope was still there. I will slide down and have a look, he said. He went down the rope. It was knotted at intervals, so that his feet found holding places, and he didn't slide down too quickly and scorch his hands. He was soon in the cave. A dim light came in from the seaward side. Julian took a quick look around. There was absolutely nothing there at all, except for an old box that they must have left behind when they were last here themselves. He climbed up the rope again, his head appearing suddenly out of the hole. Dick gave him a hand. Well, he said, any sign of Uncle Quentin? No, said Julian. He is not there, and hasn't been there either. I should think. It's a mystery. Where is he? And if he's really doing important work, where's all his stuff? I mean, we know that plenty of stuff was brought here, because Aunt Fanny told us so. Do you think he is in the tower? said Anne. Suddenly, he might be in that glass room at the top. He would see us at once, if he were, said Julian, scornfully, and bear your yells too. Still, we might as well have a look. So back to the castle they went and walked to the strange tower. Their aunt saw them and called to them, "Your lunch is ready. Come and have it. Your uncle will turn up, I expect." "But Aunt Fanny, where is he?" said Anne, with a puzzled face. "We have looked everywhere." Her aunt didn't know the island as well as the children did. She imagined that there were plenty of places to shelter in or to work in. "Never mind," she said, looking quite undisturbed. "He will turn up later. You come along and have your meal." "We think we will go up the tower," said Julian, "just in case he is up there working." The four children and Timmy went to where the tower rose up from the castle yard. They ran their hands over the smooth, shining sections which were fitted together in curving rows. "What's this stuff it's built of?" said Dick. "Some kind of a new plastic, I expect," said Julian. "Very light and strong, and easily put together." "I would be afraid if it would blown in a gale," said George. "Yes, so would I," said Dick. "Look, here's the door." The door was small and rounded at the top. A key was in the keyhole. Julian turned it and unlocked the door. It opened outwards, not inwards. Julian put his head inside and looked around. There wasn't much room in the tower. A spiral staircase, made of the same shiny stuff as the tower itself, wound up and up and up. There was a space at one side of it, into which projected strange hook-like objects made of what looked like steel. Wire ran from one to the other. "Better not touch them," said Julian, looking curiously at them. "This is like a tower out of a fairy tale. Come on, I'm going up the stairs to the top." He began to climb the steep, spiral stairway. It made him feel dizzy to go up and around so many, many times. The others followed him. Tiny, slit-like windows, set sideways, not downwards, were let into the side of the tower here and there, and gave a little light to the stairway. Julian looked through one and had a wonderful view of the sea and the mainland. He went on up to the top. When he got there, he found himself in a small round room, whose sides were of thick, gleaming glass. Wires ran right into the glass itself, and then pierced through it, the free ends waving and glittering in the strong wind that blew around the tower. There was nothing in the little room at all. Certainly Uncle Quentin wasn't there. It was clearly only a tower meant to take the wires up on the hook-like things, and to run them through the strange, thick glass at the top, and set them free in the air. What for? Were they catching some kind of wireless waves? Was it to do with radar? Julian wondered, frowning. What was the meaning of the tower and the thin, shining wires? The others crowded into the little room. Timmy came too, having managed the spiral stairs with difficulty. "What a strange place," said George, "and what an amazing view we have got from here. We can see miles and miles out to sea, and on this other side we can see miles and miles across the bay. over the mainland to the hills beyond. Yes, it's lovely, said Anne. But where is Uncle Quentin? We still haven't found him. I suppose he's on the island. Well, his boat has pulled up in the cove, said George. We saw it. Then he must be here somewhere, said Dick. But he is not in the castle. He is not in the dungeons. He is not in the cave. And he's not up there. It's a mystery. The missing uncle, where is he? Said Julian. Look, there's poor Aunt Fanny still down there, waiting with the lunch. We would better go down. She's signaling to us. I would like to, said Anne. It's a tight squeeze in this tiny glass room. Did you feel the tower sway then? When that gust of wind shook it. I'm going down quickly, before the whole thing blows over. She began to go down the spiral stairs, holding on to a little handrail that ran down beside them. The stairs were so steep that she was afraid of falling. She nearly did fall when Timmy pushed his way past her and disappeared below at a remarkably fast pace. Soon they were all down at the bottom. Julian locked the door again. Not much good locking a door if you leave the key in, he said. Still, I would better. They walked over to Aunt Fanny. I thought you were never coming, she said. Did you see anything interesting up there? Only a lovely view, said Anne. But we didn't find Uncle Quentin. It's very mysterious. Aunt Fanny, we really have looked everywhere on the island. But he's just not here. And yet his boat is in the cove, said Dick. So he can't have gone. Yes, it does sound odd, said Aunt Fanny, handing around the sandwiches. But you don't know your uncle as well as I do. He always turns up all right. He's forgotten I was bringing you, or he would be here. As it is, we may not see him. If he's forgotten about your coming, if he remembers, he will suddenly turn up. But where from? Asked Dick, munching a ham sandwich. He's done a good disappearing trick, Aunt Fanny. Well, you will see where he comes from. I expect when he arrives, said Aunt Fanny. Another sandwich, George? No, not you. Timmy, you have had 3 already. Oh, George, do keep Timmy's head out of that plate. He is hungry too. Said George. Well, I have brought dog biscuits for him, said her mother. Oh, as if Timmy would eat dog biscuits when he can have sandwiches, said George. He only eats dog biscuits when there's absolutely nothing else, and he's so ravenous he can't help eating them. They sat in the warm April sunshine, eating hungrily. There was orange squash to drink, cool and delicious. Timmy wandered over to rock pool he knew, wherever rainwater collected, and he could be heard lapping there. Hasn't he got a good memory? Said George proudly. It ages since he was here, and yet he remembered that pool at once, when he felt thirsty. It's funny Timmy hasn't found Uncle Quentin, isn't it? Said Dick. Suddenly, I mean, when we were hunting for him and got warm, you would think Timmy would bark or scrape about or something, but he didn't. I think it's really odd that Dad can't be found anywhere, said George. I really do, I don't know how you can take it so calmly. Well, as I said before, I know your dad better than you do, said her mother. He will turn up in his own good time. I remember once when he was doing some sort of work in the stalactite caves at Cheddar. He disappeared in them for over a week, but he wandered out all right when he would finished his experiments. It's very strange, began Anne, and then stopped suddenly. A strange noise came to their ears, a rumbling, grumbling, angry noise like a giant hidden dog, growling in fury. Then there was a hissing noise from the tower, and all the wires that waved at the top were suddenly lit up as if by lightning. There now, I knew your dad was somewhere about, said George's mother. I heard that noise when I was here before, but I couldn't make out where it came from. Where did it came from? Said Dick. It sounded almost as if it was underneath us. But it couldn't have been. How strange. No more noises came. They each helped themselves to jam donuts, and then Anne gave a squeal that made them all jump violently. Look, there's Uncle Quentin, standing over there, near the tower. Here's watching the check doors. Where did he come from?